Hi, it's Colin Klupik here with you talking about lesson planning. In this week's tutorial, you're actually going to spend time producing your own lesson plan for a lesson that you're going to present to the rest of the class in a few weeks' time. You've got two options. You can either do a full-length normal lesson plan for a class that you think you might be teaching in your upcoming prac, or the second option is to do a small micro lesson because you're only going to have 10 minutes to present this. So you might like to think about teaching us something that you think is important or something that you're interested in a small 10-minute segment. Now, it doesn't really matter which one you choose. You can choose either to suit your purposes, but the reason why we're going to look at this template is because the underlying principles involved are the same, regardless of whether you do the 10-minute lesson or whether you do the whole lesson. So let's have a look at this sample template and we'll see what we can make of it. First of all, let's look at some of the details up here at the top. You can clearly see the date and the time. This is a 1-hour lesson. That's not a hugely long lesson, but it's also not a particularly short lesson, so there is some potential here to achieve quite a lot, but maybe not too much. The next thing to bear in mind is that the lesson goal is very clearly stated. But when you look at the lesson goal is actually pretty big. Students will design and create models of roller coasters to investigate energy transformations and how design will impact on energy efficiency in a system. That's a lot. I mean, let's just take the first few words. Students will design, they will do it, and create models of roller coasters. Well, that sounds like a big task. Let's see how achievable we think that might be. The most important thing to realize here is that we're using a template which has very specific criteria. On the left, we've got the syllabus outcomes, and in the middle, we've got intentions, and then over the end here, we've got the success criteria. We need to have these in our minds so that we've got a better chance of creating a successful outcome for the lesson. But let's have a look at some of the detail here. We've got quite a few outcomes here on the left. So there's one here, there's one here, and there's one here, and there's one here. That's quite a lot. Now, in your subject, the outcomes might be numbered and specified differently. In fact, they will be. But do you need to focus on that many outcomes? You've only got an hour. Chances are that you'll probably be able to properly address one of them, maybe two. It's possible that even one outcome might actually go over several lessons, but that depends on your circumstances. The learning intentions are fairly clear, and I think you can have a few of those. But when it comes to the success criteria over here on the right, that actually looks like quite a lot of material. Let's just look at this first one, for example. The first one here says, students will design a roller coaster that uses gravitational potential energy. I would have thought that that was actually enough, but it goes on. In fact, the third one down here, this one gets quite detailed. So it talks about potential energy, and kinetic energy to thermal energy. So this is a lot to pack into one lesson. Let's see how this transpires as we go down. You can see here that in this particular lesson plan, each of these items here is timed down to the minute. So you've got here 1 to 2 minutes to get through all of this content here. All you need is some random question from a student and suddenly you'll end up with trouble because your 1 to 2 minutes disappears. The next thing here is you've got 3 to 4 minutes. Now, look at what you've got to get through in 3 to 4 minutes. That's quite a lot. And in fact, if we have a look at the resource over here on the side, you can see here that you've got almost a minute just to get through the YouTube video. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 questions, 1 video, and you've only got 3 to 4 minutes. So these are things to consider. Now, all of those things might be very good things to do. They might actually be very worthwhile, but you might find that you're getting very close to possibly even halfway through the lesson or a third of the way through the lesson before you've had a chance to properly do this content. So coming down here, we're now into the development section, and there's a lot of text here. The question to ask yourself is, in your lesson, are you actually going to read through all this text? Are you going to refer to it? And if you are, just coming back to this now, are you actually going to be able to read through all of that and know where you're up to? Remember, the plan is there for you. You're not there for the plan. Now, the content here looks pretty good. It looks pretty solid. The question is, are you going to be able to get through it? Think about that carefully. And you can see here that out of the 7 minutes, on the right here, you can see that there's another video here which can take, what have we got? Probably about 2.5 minutes right there. So 2.5 out of the 7 goes towards watching the video. What about practical questions like starting the video? Is there going to be buffering time? Is it actually going to work? Have you got all the text set up? These are questions that you need to ask yourself, because when you get into the lesson, it might not work. Moving further down, then we go into consolidation and challenge, and then finally end up with the conclusion. Now, all of these things are great, but if you have a look here, the challenge for 20 minutes, just that one right there, this is where they actually get to do a lot of the making and building. Over here, it tells us all of these resources that need to come out. From experience, I'd like to suggest that pulling out all of these resources, these ones here, pulling out all of those resources and doing all of that over here in 20 minutes, that's quite a challenge. So think carefully about how much is enough, how much is too much, and how much detail do you actually need to achieve what is your initial lesson goal, this one right here. Sometimes the goal can be achieved with very simple things. Sometimes you also need a little bit more detail. This is an example to just get you thinking about that so that you don't end up with a lesson plan that's 3 or 4 pages long, which you only get through about a half of. So as you're doing this lesson plan for this particular task, have a think about those things, and we'll see you in the next video.